Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? And this might actually be one of the tougher questions to answer in this phone season. Who is the Google Pixel 3 XL for? I say XL because that is the edition that I have. You've already seen me make a few different videos about this phone, so as always, let's go ahead and start this off with our standard disclaimer. This is not an exhaustive list. If there is a particular user you think I am missing in this video, make sure you make that known in the comment sections down below and we'll have a discussion as to what types of users you think this phone is for as well. Let's start off with something really obvious. I want to get this out of the way because I've already talked about it a bunch of times on my channel. This phone is not for the notch hater. Now, I personally don't find too much wrong with notches at this point, but I do admit that the Pixel 3 has taken it to the next level. What many of you have also lamented is the larger bezel around the screen. Yes, there are actual bits and pieces in those portions, like the dual front-facing speakers and the wide-angle front-facing camera, but I admit this trade-off can be a hard pill to swallow when we see many other companies trying to make the best possible use of their space. Take, for example, the teardrop notches of some other devices, the innovative ways of moving the different bits away from the display, and finally some phones that somehow marry the best of both worlds by having a notch and minimal bezels. I think that as tech enthusiasts we have seen this trend grow and thus are kind of numb to seeing this dip at the top of the screen at this point. I chose to let the rest of the phone speak volumes louder than this one design choice, but I understand if there are some users out there who are looking to upgrade from a smartphone that is, let's say, 2 years old, and then they look at something like this and they're honestly just surprised. Another person this phone may not be for is the spec hungry. Let's face it, the Pixel 3 is not about giving you every single thing it possibly can in one device. That's a task usually taken on by the likes of Samsung and Huawei. Many of you have already sounded off on this in my comment sections. There's no micro SD card slot, there's no super high storage option, there's only 4 GB of RAM, and if I'm honest, I have seen applications just sort of dying in the background. It does have a smaller battery than most, with battery life that is ultimately made for one day. You're going to spend a bit of time either plugged in for fast charging or with the phone sitting on some sort of wireless charger like the Pixel stand, which makes the phone a little bit more like a Google Assistant or a Google Home, which is actually kind of nice. And then of course, there's no headphone jack. Now, the Pixel 3 will not be winning any awards for being the phone that has something for everyone, plain and simple. Thankfully, there are plenty of other phones out there with the specifications you might be clamoring for. Google is making it abundantly clear that their phone has a couple of focuses and will be sticking to them. And that's the reason why this phone might be pretty good for the minimalist. Let's not forget what Google has done with the design of this device. The screen aside, what we have here is the latest and honestly best iteration of the Pixel design language. You still get that two-tone backing, but with a back that is entirely glass, and most of it has been frosted to achieve a soft feel with a unique look. The phone feels slightly thinner and it's definitely much better balanced in the hand. It just feels really nice. And even if it's not the flashiest of devices, no matter what color you choose, anything more than a cursory glance will make it clear. That's a Pixel right there. Some people simply want to have the latest version of Android possible without all the OEM features that companies like Samsung bake in. And while there may be some aspects to Android Pie that take some getting used to, like those gestures, it is still the version of Android that Google is pushing forward as the quintessential experience. And that will be the case for at least a couple of years, in which time you can enjoy the next 2 or 3 versions of what Android might be. I'm still wondering what Q will end up standing for. But then Android does have a lot of new features in the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 3 XL, so this phone could be for those who are in need of assistance. There's actually a lot you can do with the Pixel 3 software and accessories if you're locked into the Google ecosystem. All Google apps are already installed in the phone, and storage gets helped along by full quality unlimited storage in Google Photos. Google's feed is always to the left of the home screens, which themselves already put a search bar at the bottom for easy access. You can of course squeeze the phone and Assistant will be ready for your voice commands, and Google Lens is right in the camera app ready to recognize various aspects of the physical world. And if you're like me and you use Project Fi, Pixels are usually the best way to go given their eSIM capabilities, especially abroad. The Pixel stand makes the Google Home out of your phone, opting for the front-facing speakers, the microphone array, and the screen built into the phone to give you the same type of home hub experience. If you don't already have a Google Home or some sort of smart display, this is one way to get that experience without having to invest in even more products. And if you basically never pick up the phone because of spam or because of people you don't want to talk to at the moment, Screen Call puts Google Assistant in your caller's ear to ask them what they want so you don't have to. But I do think that Assistant should sound a little bit more natural because some people think it's a voicemail or they just hang up the moment they hear an automated voice. Obviously, the meat of a Pixel device is its camera, and this phone is for photographers. All hail the power of Google's data-driven processing that allows for a single rear camera to do great things. Shutterbugs will get a kick out of how the photos just seem to come out looking like they were already edited in Lightroom. But if you want to do some post-processing on your own, the Pixel also gives you the option of RAW plus JPEG photo capture, so you can take that RAW file into your editing bay. HDR Plus makes the Pixel a reliable camera not just by taking all the photos at once, but by using the data gleaned from millions of Google Photos photographers to add in things like contrast or to punch up the colors. The Pixel remains one of the only phones that can actually make a decent photo out of a generally bad situation. For example, shooting directly into sunlight is never recommended, but it's really only with Pixels that something can be taken from that less than ideal scene. There's much less fuss in getting a good photo in this phone than in pretty much any other. Just do a bit of a slide on the exposure slider, lock it and the focus down using the icon, and then you just let HDR Plus do the rest. Sometimes it goes a little too far with the effect, but that's why turning on the ability to toggle HDR in the first place can prove kind of useful. I took the Pixel 3 XL with me to a lot of different places, not the least of which was Paris. And I'm really glad that I waited to do the review until after that trip because it's where I learned that this phone is made for the IG boyfriend. To put this into context, let's jump into the little vacation that my girlfriend Isa Rodriguez and I had in Paris and talk about Top Shot.
Remember yesterday when you were doing my OOTD? I was just like, you were like, what pose do you want? And I said, just keep on clicking.
Yeah, and you've never said that to me before.
We were just talking about it. That new Google Pixel 3 function, Top Shot, that sort of takes a bunch of photos and allows you to pick one after. That is a godsend for Instagram boyfriends because that will allow you to just stand there, take one photo, and pick from like the bunch. Not you though, because you can compose yourself.
Thank you. The timing is also good because night sight has finally made it to the Pixel 3 and actually the other Pixel phones. Now I have to spend more time with the mode and get more of the ins and outs of it, but I did take the phone out for a stroll one night and I was really impressed with all of the photos that I saw. Putting it in simplistic terms, the phone uses the same Google processing to figure out if the shot or the scene require a long exposure. And then of course, all of that processing is put on top of what could be a 7-second exposure. The results can be really jarring in a good way. Situations where you would normally have trouble even with a proper DSLR are actually made usable in a picture made by night sight. So imagine if you're in other situations like in a bar or if you're inside of some sort of club or you're just out with your friends at night. You're actually able to use the night sight even on the front-facing camera to get those selfies at night that are always so hard to get. So of course with a good camera, this phone could be for social media junkies. You might have seen Google putting this phone in the hands of many influencers and celebrities to show off how it can up your social media game. The selfie lover in particular will be happy to see a wide-angle front-facing camera added to the array that gets backed by that data-driven Google processing. Not only does this mean better contrast and detail, but also a portrait mode that can accommodate more people or more scenery behind you, the subject. If your Instagram feed is generally a slew of portraits and selfies to begin with, then the Pixel might be the phone you've been waiting for. And this level of processing is also available in the actual social media apps themselves. Normally you would shoot with the main camera and then bring that content into things like Instagram stories or Snapchat, but it is entirely possible to use the app cameras in the Pixel 3 and still get enhanced results. That way you can eliminate a couple of steps. So photos get a lot of love on the Pixel 3, but video doesn't get quite as much. That's why, unfortunately, I have to say this phone is not really for vloggers. I was super excited to see a proper wide-angle view added to the front-facing camera array, even if it meant having a big notch. And while the field of view is great for showing one's surroundings while being in the frame, the problem is that Google's algorithmic processing doesn't carry over into videos. So as is the case with many front-facing cameras, the video performance is obviously lacking when compared to the main shooters. Unfortunately, the worst part about using the front-facing camera, especially for vlogging, or really any of the cameras on the Pixel 3, is the audio pickup. You can hear it right now and you heard it in my vlog a while ago. The audio is just not that great coming from this phone. The main cameras do a good job of recording high quality video coupled with accessories that could help you achieve the right look. Slow motion is reliable and fun to use, and the ability to easily lock the exposure and focus with a single tap helps keep videos consistent. Honestly, if you're looking to get B-roll and you are in good lighting conditions, the Pixel 3 can fill in as a good B camera, but the lack of audio quality makes it hard to lean on fully when a clip-on lens can make all of the difference for the front cameras, and the microphones on other phones do a much better job. It's easy to look at the faults of the Pixel 3 when you look at it compared to other flagships, but when you take it in a vacuum, you can understand what exactly this phone is trying to do. And if that aligns with the kind of user that you are, then you might be getting the best possible experience that Android can provide. After all, this is a Google phone. The Pixel 3 is probably the most disappointing phone that I still use on the daily. How's that for a hot take? Let me know what you think of my final thought in the comment sections down below, and let's have a conversation about the Google Pixel 3 XL. I think for all of the phones that have been coming out recently and will come in the future, this is probably the one that is most controversial. It's also the one that I've had to talk about the most because everyone has a differing opinion on it. With all of that, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. I'm going to move on from the Pixel 3 XL and get into the other phones that I have to review because there are so many of them. So look forward to all of that, and until my next video, I will remind you to enjoy your tea, everybody.